let's see, we're about to start the June 5th meeting, Stormwater Management Advisory Commission. I will read a notice here at the beginning of this, and then we'll move forward with our agenda. The meeting is being recorded by video and audio means. These recordings will be posted on the city's website for public viewing and listening. In-person attendees of the meeting will be included in this recording. By remaining in this meeting, in-person attendees agree that their images and/or voices may be included in these recordings. All right, we have a new member here, and I'd like to welcome Marinelle. I think you were appointed a month or two ago, so you were out of traveling last meeting, so welcome aboard. So if you don't mind telling us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah.
And we'll do kind of a 30-second on each of us.
Yeah. So hi, everybody. I'm Marinelle Waldo. I serve as Regional Field Director for Power Up NC Raleigh. We are a program of North Carolina League of Conservation Voters Foundation. I have a master's degree in environmental economics and policy from Duke University. I graduated last year before I joined NCLCEF.
Welcome. Great, thank you. I'm Graham Smith. I'm a local landscape architect. I am the chair, so I'm a small business owner here.
Nicola Hill, Vice Chair, been working for a couple of years now, often with this group, but normally day-to-day job is a management consultant working with.
Hello, I'm Melody, and I've been on the commission, I guess it's going on 2 years now. And I work over at SAS in Cary.
My name is Robert Haskell. I've been on the commission since last fall and developed.
My name is Samantha Brock. I've been on the commission for a couple of years now and just took on the role as planning commission liaison, working with our team to just connect with the planning commission in their ongoing meetings. And yeah, I work as the river keeper on the Neuse River, so doing environmental water quality work.
My name is Barrett Jenkins, and I work with Davie Resource Group, which is a big environmental consulting company that specializes in stream and wetland and water quality mitigation projects.
I'm Luann Phillips. I've been on, this is my 3rd year, and I'm retired and have a background in city planning.
And we met, but Ian McMillan, and I've been on the commission for about 1.5 years. I work for the state in Office of Continuous Improvement, where I'm managing ARPA money for 500 municipalities around the state.
With that, the next item is minutes for approval. I think Scott has distributed the minutes with our packages, so I'd like to see if we have a motion for approval in a second, and then we can discuss if any changes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, second one. Yeah. Any discussion on the minutes? Oh, okay, all in favor of approving? Aye. Okay, all approved. Thank you. Public comments. Let's see, this is an in-person meeting, so comments will be made for those who register at the in-person meeting indicating would like to speak. Matt, I believe there's one person who'd like to speak. Yeah. And we typically hold 3 minutes for a person to speak. So.
Your resident stormwater superintendent. I am trying to encourage everybody in city leadership to consider what it could look like to develop what is hopefully to be considered a creek street. We have many ways to kind of corral our strategies of planning, but we don't quite have ways to approach and integrate environmental needs and turn a hopeful creek street. In my opinion and my very limited expertise, Creek Street might be an area where it's low lying in a neighborhood where there is creek-prone flooding alongside being the street with the stormwater runoff receptors. So not only are all their creeks, all the creeks doing their things, but we have all of the pipes doing their things. And when those pipes have concentrated amounts of runoff going into our creeks, they are contributing, perhaps an undetermined amount of erosion, because that is another concentrated amount of water flow that might stress our already tired ecosystems. A creek street might acknowledge this, and a creek street might acknowledge the necessity of healthy root systems and established tree canopies to help stabilize these necessities and utilities all throughout our cities. If we could develop a pilot concept of a creek street, we could try to analyze what variables might be carried over to other neighborhoods and what kind of variables factor into what makes a creek street a creek street. My hope for this is because the way these creeks are deteriorating is perhaps happening at a rate that is astonishing in very unpredictable ways. And the thing that is contributing most to it at this time is added runoff without help. And while we try to figure out how to catch up to all of our needs, perhaps things like the Creek Street is that beginning stage to get city council, city leadership to start focusing on how to correct that. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, we have, city councilor.
Councilmember Jones, you're not able to attend.
Okay, all right. Pass forward. I didn't mean any feedback from her.
No, I did not even.
Okay.
I spoke to her, she told me she wasn't able to come, they have any specific comments.
Okay. All right. And then moving on then to the planning commission and SMAC liaison, Glade and Smith. Presentation.
I was out of the country, so did not have our, we did not have our check-in, our usual check-in beforehand, not yesterday. But I think you'll cover the update 25.
I will make it up to you in September. When I might be leaving the country. For good reason, not for the longest reason. All right, so actually some interesting cases this week. At Planning Commission, we've got the stormwater text change, which does have a text change number now, TCQ 25. At City Council, we have 4 zoning cases that we've already talked about, but so the stormwater text change is changing the definition of built-upon area or impervious area to conform to the state statute, which is for gravel areas and things like that, which the state passed last year, so it's changed, and also to address an issue we're seeing with residential lots that are over 1 acre. That was our last update to the state standard. Lost a fair amount of development potential for these lots. And so, interestingly enough, something on the state side, because I'm on a commission on the state side as well, they're looking at something with that as well, because the 1 acre lot, they're going from 5%, like that's barely a driveway in a house for a lot that size, and that's kind of interesting. But this item will appear on next Tuesday's planning commission meeting agenda, and we're still on track to hopefully get into the July 1st public hearing, but we'll see. That's still kind of up in the air, but if we don't make that, that'll be all right. The definition section is actually the state statute. Our city attorney's office told us to kind of go ahead and start regulating that to the state statute. So we're basically changing our code to conform, but right now we're regulating to the state statute. So we're trying to follow the state. Okay, first case that was heard by city council on Tuesday was the case in the watershed, the 8415 Honeycutt, which is the Falls Lake watershed, Z3924, here in the northern section, north of Strickland Road. And so if y'all will remember, this is that 14 acre case that is R1. They want to move to R6 conditional use that the applicant came and presented to the SMAC last month on. Subject to the Falls Lake watershed regulations, they had a 5 stormwater specific conditions that were shared with SMAC via email. We appreciate all you guys just responding to that, as quick as you did. Just for non-stormwater over density thing, they are limiting their units to 56, which is about 2/3 of the allowable those area. Council did approve this on last Tuesday, the June 3rd. Just to kind of go through again, just a refresher for the watershed, for the water by watershed regulations. They do have to treat for nitrogen and phosphorus, which is different from the rest of the city, which is just nitrogen in the rest of the city. The max impervious for this site is 30%, and anything above 24% must use stormwater infrastructure to treat their stormwater. And there's 40% forestation requirement for areas that are in the Falls Lake watershed beyond regular tree conservation, which is citywide, about 10%, depending on where exactly you are. Proposed conditions that you saw staff's comments on was 25-year storm attenuation during and after construction, which is a little bit different because we have a 2 and 10-year post-construction, which is standard for most of our cases. So that was going above that. Sod used for all their stabilization. It is a grass seed. It stabilizes a little bit faster and it is more expensive. And also on the downstream side of the site here, they agreed to use double rows of silt fence to further keep any sediment from leaving the site. And also the sediment basins are sized more for high quality waters. That last one sounds really nice, but we sort of get to that in our regulations now and sort of a circuitous route, but that just kind of highlights the doing that. But all in all, the conditions are strong. I like them. And you guys mostly saw them, but that did get passed last Tuesday afternoon, June 3rd. The next one is on Barrow Road in the southeast area of town, Z4724. This is that site that's right up in Walnut Creek. They are currently R4 in manufactured housing, which for our new member, R4 means 4 units per acre. So I apologize for throwing out this jargon without any explanation there. And then moving to an R10 or 10 units per acre, 10 units per acre conditional use zone. And per the applicant, they're looking at a proposed townhome development. There's no residential development allowed north of Walnut Creek in this area. Per our ordinance, our UDO, to a floodplain on site would not be allowed to be developed anyways, since it's a vacant lot.
Is that the purple?
Yes. Actually, it's purple and also this action, which is the bigger floodplain area, which we regulate as well. And they did have a stormwater condition that got added since this last time, was to go up to 25-year rate of runoff control for post construction, and also to do the double row silt fence within 200 feet of Walnut Creek. Pretty good. And this was approved on city council at their last meeting on June 3rd.
Can I just add one thing about that? I'm assuming on his side. I did watch the recording. I was just interested to hear the discussion. And I think there was some interesting discussion. Another hat that I wear, I'm on the board of Partners for Environmental Justice, and there was some discussion about this topic, and they submitted a request for the developer to incorporate green stormwater infrastructure, and that was on behalf of PEJ. And I think there was some good discussion during the meeting about, and I know Wayne, you were there, sort of about the practicability and possibility for them to do that. And there was some pushback from the developer saying, well, we can't do GSI on site because it'll require us to take down more trees. And then I think you sort of responded by saying, well, there's probably a variety of options. And one question I have is just, is there a easy resource that Stormwater Department has? Probably yes, kind of listing out the suite of GSI options and like associated costs that we could share?
Yeah, there is a resource. We referenced the state design manual for green stormwater infrastructure, and our city stormwater design manual does reference that, so we're not replicating the information. We don't have a good cost reference per se, but we're glad to provide examples of costs of the different types of GSI that we've implemented and that we know of that have been implemented. So definitely welcome to share that with any other developers or anyone else.
And I thought that what you said was really helpful and just highlighted for me the need to engage further in conversation with council about GSI opportunities on private land development.
Didn't like a grass swell, like the simplest GSI, like just putting in a grass swell, sort of,
It's a grass.
a grass swell thing.
Yeah, no, that would,
So like anytime a developer says, oh, we can't do that, it's like, well, you can put a grass swell right in there, the trees above a lot.
Or impervious pavement, as one of the council members pointed out.
Right, like that's expensive and hard to plan and everything, but you can put a little berm in there, slow it water down.
And the pervious pavers are not that expensive.
Sorry.
So that pavement, yes, pavement is very expensive. Pervious, concrete and asphalt. Pavers.
Yeah, did you have a question?
Yeah, no, I was just wondering, and this sort of got discussed, but if there could just be comments about, this is a good option, but it's maintenance intensive more so than maybe some of the others, and one of the less expensive and more, without really getting into dollars, that sort of thing. So it gives us an idea. If that's possible. Maybe just some comments and everything.
Yeah.
Good.
The area we, the site is completely what has been undeveloped. One thing that did help this one out too, which normally we see a lot of sewer lines that are following our major creeks. This one actually is not, so they don't have to go through the creek buffer to get sewer accidents, which is nice. This line here is sewer. Moving on to the evening one here. Edinburgh Road, which is just inside the belt line off of Linwood Avenue, C 1924. This was probably the most interesting case tonight. Currently zoned R6. There's 3 lots, 3 single-family lots right now, right up to Linwood Avenue. And it's zoned at 6 units per acre. The proposed zoning was more commercial zoning, allowing 3 stories industrial use. And there were a lot of conditions with this one because essentially what they wanted to do was these 3 residential lots would go to a model home with parking, and then in approximately 8 years, they would convert it back to 3 detached single-family homes and not some other. They did have conditions for pervious driveways and sidewalks. And there is a stormwater project just off the page here at Lakewood Trail in Edinburgh, but this lot all drains towards Linwood Avenue. It's actually not by county council on Tuesday, unanimous. It's again interesting, but a lot of concerns about all the conditions for the site to make it a model home, having a model home in this kind of residential format. That's not really a subdivision. And the neighbors, to their credit, have actually said they wouldn't mind having increased density here besides the tax single family if it meant not using a commercial kind of office space type thing here. So, yeah, that's it. And
What's
this,
their next step then?
there's no really appeal or anything like that. But then they would, by regulation, have to wait 2 more years to do another rezoning case. But they can petition the council to have a shorter timeframe to come back. Like they could ask the council to let them come back sooner than 2 years, so they could potentially reformat the rezoning case. I will say, anyway, drive this way, which I do every day, they are building that single family house, which is gonna be the model home right here, because that's a legal use currently for the slot, which is a single family house. So that house is being built right now, and it didn't stop for anything after Tuesday night and Saturday.
And they're building like a dental office and that's what I think.
Yeah, this is.
I don't know how the traffic flows can work for that.
I drive by the office and I don't know how you get in there.
Yes.
Like, it was my dentist, I'm not sure how to get in there. So, yeah, but. Right, the last one was, Twitch 5, right up here. So when you guys are going out, you can take a look at it. And it was another interesting case. 1321 and 1405 Athens Drive, right outside from the high school here. This is the high school, and this is the road you came in on to get here, so it's right here. Current zoning is residential 4 with a overlay district on it for something non-stormwater related. And they want to go to an RX3, which would be like a residential 3-story, like barn buildings or townhomes would be allowed there. Part of the site is this is pretty much on top of the hill. You can see the ridge line here between Simmons Branch and Walnut Creek. So this is the ridge line here. So it is on top of the hill. So as far as the site drains in different directions. Part of the site grading to the, west drains to a structural flooding case, which would have been after the cleaned under storm. Per UDO regulation, so part of the site will have that. Also, they have these two lots highlighted here, but the only area that has access to right away is kind of uphill. So it's going to be difficult to find a place to outlet the stormwater because per our last design manual update, you have to outlet to your public right of way, an easement, or to a jurisdictional water body or some sort of defined stormwater channel and not just let it go into somebody's spot. So, if this lot was developed, anybody should take it out. That's more of a design correction. Interestingly enough, which is not shown in the application, is that the proposed use for the applicant is like a residential development with a community garden aspect, almost like not quite self-sustaining. There would be like art buildings with some gardens, and the applicant, the owner and the applicant is the couple that used to own Your Gardens Cafe. They shut down.
They sold it.
But they've owned this since 2012 apparently, and they're deciding what they want to do with this area. So it's something they want to do locally. So hopefully they can meet with the neighbors, because the neighbors are worried about more commercial type residential apartment structures coming in here. Because apparently most of that is on this side of Atkins Drive, but there's no real anything besides attached single family on this side. Perhaps the neighbors are worried about. They have a good idea and they have good intentions, but they don't want to see that open the residential apartment gates for other things to come in throughout the neighborhood. So, but it was an interesting case, and I'm curious to see where it goes. That got deferred until the July 1st council meeting. And just FYI, which I'm sure Chair Smith will go over at the end of the meeting, the city council last meeting until some break is July 1st, and then they'll be off for the July 18th meeting, the first meeting in August, coming back in the second meeting in August, in the same planning commission. So there'll be a lot of stuff on that July 1st agenda if you want to tune in and see it all happen, because it'll be the last meeting of about 6 meetings. So
Any questions?
there's the.
Thank you for that.
But I saw the rezoning sign as I was pulling in here, so you guys
Yeah.
can check it out and right home.
Okay, I did forget to go back, and we have one request for excused absence. Josh had let Scott and Wayne and I know that he could not make it in a conflict. So I guess I'd like to put that on the table if anybody would like to approve them for, just a motion to approve them to be excused.
Motion to approve.
Eric? What? Okay, all in favor? Okay. Gave us 48 hours notice. It was a good one. All right, we now have stormwater staff update and matters of importance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just a reminder, the FY25 work plan is in the agenda packet. So the agenda items do refer back to the appropriate portion of that work plan. We'll continue to doing that. And Scott Ryan has been doing that as a suggestion from the commission. I think that's been helpful to track how we're doing it relative to the work plan. In terms of stormwater updates from the staff, we do have a few, and I'll ask maybe our staff to stand up as I'm introducing them. First, let me introduce Lakeisha Jackson with the Stormwater Utility Billing Administration team. Lakeisha comes to us from Duke Health, while she served as a billing coordinator, specializing in large adjustments in credit. She brings 15 years of experience in customer service and leadership, including 12 years as a general manager with Verizon. She holds a double major in accounting and business management from the National College of Business and Technology, which she earned in 2005. In her new role, Lakeisha will oversee permit review, pervious surface management using our stormwater application to ensure accurate billing, and she'll manage parcel and PIN updates, divided or recombined for development. She has a natural investigative mindset and a drive to understand the why, making her a strong addition to our team. Welcome, Lakeisha.
Which I guess with that,
She gonna, who's going backwards to take all the gravel out of the mapping and all that? Work in progress.
Yes.
Another new addition to our team, Matt Forrest is here. Matt is the new senior maintenance technician for our green stormwater infrastructure maintenance crew, where he will be managing and operating equipment with a keen eye for employee and environmental safety. Matt developed an appreciation for the natural world early on, camping and canoeing around the Adirondack Mountains in the Hudson Valley region of New York State. After high school, he majored in music education at the Eastman School of Music in Rochester and spent a few years playing drums in LA, and then 30 years in the music business, touring the country, playing classical rock, jazz music, as well as teaching students of all ages until it was time to settle down. And Matt got his environmental roots as a maintenance worker at the William B. Olmsted State Park, and then was hired by the city of Raleigh on greenway maintenance in 2021, and moved over to the Mount Hope Cemetery the following year. When asked about the new position, Matt said, I'm looking forward to this opportunity to improve the health of our streams and rivers, and ultimately all the communities and natural areas downstream from Raleigh. It's a big job. Welcome, Matt. Glad to have you.
next meeting, they get drum solo?
And he plays on the park band. We have a promotion announcement. Sandra Moreno has been promoted to the Stormwater Fiscal Analyst position. In her new role, Sandra will be deeply involved in all fiscal and financial operations. She'll be supporting capital improvements, cash flow planning as we prepare for debt financing, which we've talked a lot about in FY26. Sandra brings over 17 years of experience with the city of Raleigh, having most recently served in before her current stormwater role with solid waste services and previously in the revenue and payroll divisions. Her extensive background, dedication, passion make her a valuable asset to our fiscal team and in her new capacity. Congratulations, Sandra. And we are also very excited to have some new interns with us for the summer and are joining us today. First, I'd like to introduce Sarah Smith, who will be interning with our water quality section this summer. She will assist water quality staff with benthic macroinvertebrate sampling at our 22 sites, NPDES monitoring, and volunteer and outreach events. She has experience collecting benthic macroinvertebrates as part of her coursework at NC State University and experience completing GIS project-based coursework. She conducted extensive microplastics research, which included lab work and technical writing. And she recently graduated from NC State University in May with a bachelor's degree in marine sciences and a minor in environmental toxicology. My apologies. Raleigh Stormwater is looking forward to have Sarah join her team. And we have two of our interns with the Raleigh Stormwater Plan Review Group who are with us here today. First, Holly Albright is originally from Winston-Salem. She's about to start her senior year at NC State. She's studying biological and agricultural engineering with a concentration in ecology. She likes to go on hikes, explore Raleigh, and spend time with friends. Welcome, Holly. And also with the plan review team, Brianna Findley is originally from Syracuse, New York, is about to start her senior year at North Carolina A&T University. She's studying biological engineering with a focus on natural resources. She has earned a Bachelor's of Science, Environmental Science at Spelman College in 2023, and she likes aquarium and aquatic gardens. Fun fact, she once worked at NASA. Welcome, Brianna. Okay, moving on to high priority topics, quick update on the new fiscal year 2026. So the stormwater budget has been incorporated as proposed with the 57-cent per equivalent unit per month rate increase, and that has been included in the city manager's budget, which has been presented to city council. There was a public hearing this past Tuesday evening and received quite a few comments from public on the budget. And deliberations will continue on that budget. It has not been passed yet, but now that the stormwater budget has been incorporated into the overall budget, once the overall budget is passed, the stormwater budget will be passed as is. And there were no comments pro or against stormwater, so I would anticipate it to remain unchanged as originally proposed. Just a reminder on the Raleigh website, raleighNC.gov, under events, there's a link for upcoming public meetings related to stormwater. And then there are notices prior to construction listed in accordance with the North Carolina General Statute reference. A number of capital improvements projects listed here that will be starting in the next 90 days. And that is all I have for my update. Sure.
Thank you.
You discussed in the past that there might be opportunities for credits. Is that something that would be presented, that we, like, if residents can apply for credits or something?
Sure. What types of?
Or there's.
Oh, the credit manual. Yes. And we can give an update on that. We have paused our credit manual at this time, pending some other initiatives, but we'll be glad to come back and give you an update on that. But right now, the current credit manual is still in place, and we're looking at whether we should implement any changes.
Is it possible to give, what's the green stormwater infrastructure and urban heat islands project? Second to last.
Yes, so I'm sorry, which one is that?
Second.
Stormwater rehabilitation. So I have an old copy of the.
That's the one I'm looking at.
Oh, I think you're latest one. Okay, so yeah, I guess I had an earlier version of the agenda. The green stormwater infrastructure and urban heat islands, that was a project that was originally, the design was funded using ARPA funds. And we had to pause implementation of that, but now it has been, I think there's one of those. Somebody here familiar with that one? Or Megan, is a stat, are you familiar with the status of the urban island project? I know that was moving forward, I think there's one site we're moving forward with.
The status of the urban heat island project is that one of the sites that was identified to the privatization goal is proceeding to the construction phase, and we hope to advertise the project for construction in late July. And with that, if everything goes to plan, we'll hopefully have a contractor under contract by the end of the year, with construction starting in early 2026.
Is that identified through when the sustainability department did kind of an analysis of all the heat stuff and all that?
We used the heat island map that was developed by sustainability as a basis for identifying locations where we could put GSI, ideally with some type of a tree canopy, as a mitigation measure for the heat island. Right, that was the whole idea of that project.
Cool. All right, any questions for me? Thank you. We now have our Raleigh Rainwater Rewards projects presentation. We have 2 applications that are seeking commission review. And we have a modified consent agenda, and that essentially means we've gotten the information prior to the meeting. And all of this is in the package that we've gotten. And we don't, that kind of frees up our schedule here. We don't discuss them unless we feel like there's a topic to pull out or a project to pull out and have a discussion. But anything special that we should hear from you guys on these at all? Anything that's significant?
Not necessarily anything special regarding these projects. Can't speak to the budget if there's questions on that.
Okay. All right. I don't have any questions on the project, but does anybody else have any? We want to make a motion for approval or denial? Not you again. Work on the line. Okay, go ahead, make some motions. Second with Robert. All in favor of approving these? Okay. So approved. Okay. Next item, I think we'll hear from the Raleigh Rainwater Works team and those policy revisions and program updates.
Yeah, good afternoon. Before we get into policy updates, it's not a perfect backdrop. This is the best I felt in the city space that give a presentation on Raleigh Rainwater reports. Yeah, good afternoon. This is a important benchmark. 2 years in the making, a little over 2 years in the making. Back in 2003, we partnered with Hazen and Sawyer, outside consulting firm, to identify improvements for the Raleigh Rainwater Works program. And the project name was the R3 Enhancement Project. And the consultant was tasked with compiling and creating a history document for how and why we operate as we do. We also had them develop a program plan with assistance from staff, which document how we currently do it. And then some more detailed analysis. They looked into our tracking of our metrics and our pollutant removal tool. And we'll talk a little bit about that today. But really the reason I'm standing before you here today is they also looked at areas where we could make changes and improve our actual policy. And so we presented on this project back in April of 2024, and the commission was in full support of implementing those changes and recommendations. And so we're on schedule. We're bringing those back to the commission now, particularly for the policy, which would require further action from the commission. And I'll get into greater detail about what some of those updates were. So as stated, we're going to start with just talking about the policy changes that were part of the recommendations from the consultant, and then how staff took those to the city attorney's office and incorporated those into a new policy. We're then going to talk briefly about the comparison 1 year now after implementation between the difference between our old simple method protocol and the use of our new SNAP tool, and what that looks like from a pollutant removal standpoint, from a cap standpoint, and from a cost standpoint across projects as a whole. So, and then lastly, Stephen's going to talk about how we filled some of those data gaps that we created with this migration. So all fascinating stuff. So moving on to kind of order of operations, kind of want to set the table for where we're at in this. So we presented, as stated, back in April of 24, SMAC recommended moving forward to staff. Staff then went to the city attorney's office. It's a valuable back and forth process with city attorney's office. They look at every single word in the policy and provide feedback. So well beyond what was in the recommendations from the consultant. So every word in the policy was reviewed. I can tell you that. And so you will see in your backup material, you will see a draft new policy, and you'll see the current policy as well for reference to compare the two. And then I'll highlight some of those changes. So we are on this third step. We provided to the commission. Y'all provided feedback to staff. We ran with it for the last 12 months, 14 months. And now, prior to making these changes official, they would have to be supported by the commission with the recommendation vote for city council to approve at an upcoming date. So we're really back here looking for that recommendation for approval to city council. So any questions so far? Kind of why we're here. All right. Moving on. So just to jump into the actual policy changes, this is really meant to be kind of a high level review of some of the overarching themes and changes that were focused on by the consultant and secondary by staff in the city attorney's office. You know, the first, consistent language throughout the program and the policy itself. You know, reimbursement is a word that means different things to different people. Reimbursement means something very different to accounts payable compared to stormwater or to talking to someone in their backyard. So cost share is slightly more general, more applicable to really how the program operates. Petition, a little bit of an older term. We've updated that as well. We've rebranded yet again from Stormwater Quality Cost Share Program, which is what the official policy says. We have updated that to our more recent name for the program, which is Raleigh Rainwater Report. So this is actually, the update includes renaming the program Raleigh Rainwater Rewards Program. We also made some clarifications and removals. And real quick, let me back up. The policy has been updated 3 times over the last 15 years. The last update was 2018. So if you look at how frequently that policy was updated, we went a pretty good run. 7 years, no updates. And so some of this clarification and removal just happens naturally after 7 years of doing business. And so one of those things that changed were the policy drivers. Some of the things that maybe we pointed to 7 years ago, 15 years ago, it's not entirely the case today. So we refined that language, as you'll see. Another thing we noticed just from practice, since 2018, we've had this $1,000 threshold where there is no maintenance term required. It's a city staff review. It's supposed to be the streamline of the streamline process. And it was so infrequently used in the staff effort for this to facilitate this. And the fact that there's no maintenance attached to the end of it. It was determined through the study to remove that. So that was one of the removals. Another is some artifact options, artifact language in the policy that would involve the city taking on an easement on someone's property along with a loan to facilitate a project. It's not something that the city has ever utilized or an applicant's ever utilized, and that as well was removed. So we had some removals, thresholds. So back in 2018, this whole delegation to staff for low-cost projects was set up. And that was any project $5,000 or less, was reviewed by staff. That the intent there, back in 2018, was so that SMAC, the commission, would not review every single project the city application that the city received. Things that cost $5,000 back in 2018 now cost slightly more. And so we just did a quick little breakdown of the number of projects. So in the last 3 fiscal years, 85% of projects went through the commission for review. Back in 2018, it was only 40%. And so based on that number, the consultant helped us come up with a target amount of 10,000 to switch that to staff to get us more in line with the original volume of projects y'all. Any questions so far? All right, moving on to the citywide cost share. As y'all are aware, currently, this map may look familiar to y'all. The blue is 75% cost share. The pink is 90% cost share. And so the recommendation was to make a uniform cost share amount citywide. And the justification, there's multiple reasons. One, you can state that all watersheds within the city of Raleigh are impaired in some way and would benefit from a Raleigh Rainwater project. Secondly, you could have neighborhoods split up by watershed lines. You would have equal paying into the stormwater use utility fee and different outputs to different based on where you live. And also with what is proposed, which is the 90% citywide, it helps further reduces that upfront financial burden that may prohibit some folks from participating. And that was based on some feedback we received both from the commission and some other stakeholders. So in the spirit of of extending it citywide, reaching more communities, and recognizing that there's a lot of potential there that may not be focused on with folks just on the pink areas. 90% is what was pushed forward. So in essence, if this were to move forward, we would do away with the 75, 90%. It would be 90% for the entire city, and the map would no longer be an exhibit for the policy. And then lastly, I mentioned, or I would put annual reporting on there. Currently, as y'all may sure y'all are familiar with it, quarterly, we create this quarterly report on the activity of Raleigh Rainwater Awards. We were recommending us shift that to an annual report to coincide with how frequently the commission reports to city council. So staff report to the commission equal amount of times per year. And also add that quarterly report has taken so many different shapes and forms over the years. This might be a more meaningful exercise once a year as opposed to multiple exercises throughout the year with varied results. So any questions on that?
I'm assuming this doesn't affect the 100% program based on finances or is that separate from what this would have?
Yeah, so you're correct. This would not, it would only, you could argue that it would positively affect how we manage the funds for 100%. Because instead of utilizing those limited funds to cover the 25% of the applicant, we would only be using the 10%. So it wouldn't change eligibility for folks to be eligible for the 100%. And it would be less of those limited funds being used to fill that gap. So we could, I guess a better way of putting it is we could extend those funds across more projects. Any other questions about the policy, about program?
What was discussion around going to 90% versus smaller and cost share and sort of?
Like a 75 per se, as opposed to a 90?
Yeah, like 90% is fair, that cost share.
Absolutely. Yeah, so a couple of key takeaways. Oh, wait.
No, go ahead.
I would say a couple of key takeaways is the program is at a point where we are still trying to get along projects. We are still seeking projects. Two, funding is planned on to be increased significantly over the next 5 years through the planning that I've been privy to, that I've seen. So staff or the management is planning for growth in more projects. But I would say the main driver for going the 90% as opposed to the 75 goes back to that previous point about making it accessible to more folks. Because we have received feedback in the program that 75%, which would mean 25% for the applicant, is cost prohibitive for certain folks. And the 90% was selected for that reason, as opposed to going down to the 75%.
In like outside of my assumption has been outside of the educational component of this, which is great, that it's pretty expensive per unit of stormwater reduction compared to doing the larger project at a higher scale. But that might just be business background. I just wondered what sort of the analysis was on that during the review. Is it the best use of the city's resources? And I know you're going to increase the budget and everything, but just how does that compare to targeting a bigger stormwater project on state property and the cost effectiveness?
Compared to, so you're saying, and forgive me if I'm not tripping. So you're comparing like a CIP city project, city initiative, 100% city pay compared to what
It's a larger scale project in general being cost effective. And I'm saying that as a citizen who used this program and just sort of was amazed that the city was giving me that much money to do this in my background.
So I would say what the Rainwater Awards program, one of the big things that we can leverage is the maintenance and by that homeowner for that 10-year period. The amount, a city project has a price tag on day one, has a price tag at the end of the project. And then it has a price tag over the 10-year maintenance term. So I would say that, if you're just looking dollar for dollar, and I wouldn't compare them dollar for dollar, but if you would, I would say an R3 project would be significantly less cost than a larger CIP project. Just imagine, depends
Just
on.
on make, like the city maintenance budget on our project.
Correct. You're looking at, bigger projects have more complexity, bigger cost when it comes to survey and access. These are about as streamlined as a project could be put in the ground, by design. So it just depends on how you want to compare it. Yes, I would say, and that's why the staff is seeking larger projects through Raleigh Regional Boards, or maybe that cost benefit you might be getting at. Did that get to your question?
Yeah, I just wanted to.
And there's multiple factors in comparison. We've
They're
brought
out
up these
there.
questions in the past, it's like device with a 30-year maintenance term versus a 10-year, that calculation.
I'm very familiar with them.
Yeah. The other side, I would say, benefit through this program that's a little, it's not quite as quantifiable, but this is one of the main mechanisms that we can address stormwater management quantifiably.
Right. And then just roughly what's the increase of the budget and like?
Yep, I knew that question was coming. Thank you for asking. That was actually asked by Reverend Taylor about a year ago when we were presenting. So I crunched numbers, Stephen checked my numbers. I did a quick calculation based on the number of projects that are typically 75% over the last, I think it was since 2018, once we had it broken up like this, 75, 90. You're looking at about $100,000 difference if everything was 90%.
Oh, I mean, isn't your total budget to do these projects increasing?
Oh, yes, sir. So
this increase.
well, it's all a planning stage, but I would say, Wayne, would you rather answer that, or I'm happy to answer?
I'm glad to answer it. Yeah, so, as proposed in FY 26, we have $500,000 in the annual budget. And then we are proposing, and this would be subject to future consideration, increasing that at least $100,000 per year.
Set up
By year, ramping this program up.
Yeah.
So we do see this as a growing program. It's very popular. I think, Justin and Steve have done a great job promoting it, but we can definitely see this increasing. And we'll continue. I think we did one budget transfer last year. If we see continued demand above and beyond our annual budget, and we have funding available from another program that's water quality related, we will continuously consider that option of transferring it where there are eligible and worthy projects that improve water quality.
Appreciate Wayne's second part of that answer there. The program is nimble in a lot of ways, one of which is when there is some funding available and there is demand for it, we do not have to start at square one. We're able to jump in and say, hey, we have projects ready to go. That's one kind of inside baseball advantage.
And just a little historical context too, for those of you who are new. The pink areas, which were the previous 90% areas, those were total maximum daily load designated impaired watersheds. So when this program was originally envisioned, we were really trying to focus more projects in those areas. That's why we incentivized to 90%. Now that it doesn't make as much sense to do that, with Neuse River being a nutrient sensitive waterway, all of Raleigh drains into the Neuse River. Nutrient reduction is one of our primary benefits of this program. It doesn't make as much sense to make that distinction between the 75 and the 90% anymore, which is why the staff is proposing going to fully 90% to try to, again, spread that opportunity out, make it available to more people. And then it does, as was mentioned earlier, that subsidy, 100% subsidy, additional funding, if we're going to 90%, that 100% subsidy funding can go farther to more projects now because the gap is always 10% that subsidy.
Right. I have three questions. One is, do we have like a timeline and when are we going to implement the changes in the policy? And, so it seems like reimbursement word will be cost sharing because with the communities that we have been working with, this is, as I have also heard that is also the feedback, that reimbursement is like another negative connotation, like in a lot of like low income neighborhoods, if they say you have reimbursement, they will like, no, we don't have money front for that.
Right.
But it actually is like, the money actually goes directly to the contractor. Which is, I think that's like the miscommunication in that. But it's not really, communicated to the communities that you don't actually like pay upfront because the contractor will come and see your eligibility in the contractual and the city council, not city council, but storm, agency will, yeah, exactly. You will pay the contractor, so they will not see that money will go straight. So that is kind of like the miscommunication, I would say, in that. So how is like that cost sharing word will then be communicated to the
Sure.
community in a way that they would understand how it works?
Sure, and appreciate that question. It really kind of unpacks why we moved away from that reimbursement term. Is in essence, we're not reimbursing payment. We are cost sharing off an invoice from the contractor to the, and so in practice, we were always cost sharing, but out of incorrectly maybe using that term, we would say reimbursement. So so one part of that answer is that is the reason for the movement to cost share. And then how we will share that, we are partnering with an outside entity. Contract is routing as we speak. They will be able to provide folks an option to opt in to a gap fund. Thank you, Stephen. Gap funding on the front end, so there would not be any upfront costs for that owner. And so we would then cost share at the end of the project, and that money would then go back towards them. So we've tried to make it as easy as possible and accessible as possible, especially over the last couple of years, folks to participate. Does that answer?
Yeah, and one more, I guess a follow-up to that, it's like when it will be implemented and what's the plan to make people aware of the change and to, I would say, laymanize more the terms, so it's easier to understand for people, kind of like the process of accessing the funds.
So for timeline, I don't know which city council meeting, depends on kind of feedback here. If there is a recommendation to move forward, then staff will work immediately to get this moving forward. Sooner the better. We don't have a hard set timeline. This isn't any sort of, we don't have a date hanging over our heads on this. That's the first part of your question. And then efforts to get the word out. I mean, I'm always complimenting our communications and education outreach team, our website. There will need to be some outreach efforts to inform the public that things have changed. So maybe that'll be the next time we're standing up here. It's like we have an approved policy by city council. This is what we plan on doing. Any ideas? So,
and we'll be updating the website and after any requirements. You know, that's one of the main pathways forward besides word of mouth.
Last but France. I was wondering kind of like with the rainwater rewards and the 100% subsidy, as I've understood, they're separate. What's kind of like is that, I know it is separate in your website, but how can, like, is there a way to more distinguish that? And is it more homeowner or renter or both?
yeah, so we're happy to provide more information on that 100%. It's really there's three different eligible groups. One would be, there's an income threshold for single family homes, so low income. You would have rental properties that provide affordable housing rental rates, and then which is based on an AMI calculation. And then the third would be nonprofits that own property and serve the community. So as part of any application, we inform the folks that could be eligible for 100%, provide that additional information that they can then in turn provide to us, and we can inform them if they're eligible. So, but definitely appreciate the feedback on if it looks disjointed with how it's being presented at present. I know you had a question.
Well, Ian,
Ian?
Just if I'm following this correctly, sort of drop back a couple of sentences, rather than possibly being considered like a loss leader, would it be almost like a break-even leader that generates a lot of goodwill additionally, not the whole process? I think that's sort of what we were talking about before, unless I'm missing something here, was whether this is, back to your point, losing money, is that correct? But then if it's breaking even, but it's a good thing for the city and goodwill, and it's helping.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of goodwill and branding and education component that you can't economically quantify, that you could say at a minimum, that would be a break even.
The amount of project sites that are effective for $250,000 to $500,000 a year at the base level, which you've been paying out lately, is, a lot of sites, a lot of places that have been touched, I guess.
It just normalizing stormwater control for the city for the future with the rate of growth that's out the field.
my question was just the maintenance cost. What does that look like?
Depends on the project,
Yeah.
as you would know from your HOA and everything, the maintenance required of those versus a smaller.
Yeah,
Yeah, some of them, the linear, you do on a range, but I mean, you guys.
is that part of the agreement that's executed? It says in there. But then how does a person know what does that really mean to me in dollars and cents going?
I'm happy to answer. In the legal agreement as exhibits, there's an O&M schedule and an O&M checklist. So they have a schedule and then a checklist if needed to reference what to check, how frequently. And they're pretty generic, but we don't have a really long menu. We have 5 to 8 project types, and we have O&M specific for those project types. And for your question, the maintenance agreement is in the legal agreement, the duration of that. So we track that in the year it ends. So, sorry, I would say folks are phasing out of the program a couple of years because we're 15 years old. So there's some projects in the ground that are phasing out at present. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I was gonna just add to that. They will be, part of their agreement, they will be submitting these maintenance reports annually for our team, because we have a whole database.
They'll work with you if you need to do a little. I can say from experience, yes. Justin has emailed me after I submitted the report and said, we need to do this, that, and the other. That's-
I was nice.
Before after you got on the commission.
Very, way before.
Is there a range though of like,
It's blushing.
is there a way to like tell? Like, what will this?
I think
cost?
that when you get into designing the project you're gonna use a sub to build it for you and everything, they should have an idea, and the city staff has an idea certainly, because the city maintains a lot of these.
Yeah, I would think that would be, to your point, a really important thing to know for somebody who's maybe on the lower.
Yeah, equally important to educate them on the maintenance
Yeah,
obligation.
that was what the purpose of my question.
And I would say doing stormwater, certified stormwater certification, your HOAs yearly review is a different level than filling out the form for these for 10 years. It's definitely a easier process to go through and just kind of
So
observe.
I guess what I'm hearing is it's pretty cost effective. It's not a burden like after the fact is what I'm getting.
Projects we personally, our company's been involved with, the cisterns have been a little more of the challenge. And it's just had to the rain gardens haven't been an issue literally at all. And as long as no silt is, getting into them or something. But the cisterns just takes a while to kind of figure out the filtering to make sure there is some filtering going in there. It is opened up a couple times a year, make sure that the gutters are not clogged, stuff like that. But because it's a closed system, it can become something as an afterthought.
Yeah, that's 100% cost share too. That's a good thing to educate potential partners.
Yeah.
That they have that obligation. You get it's paid for what you have to do.
Yeah, I don't know about permeable paving. We've always avoided that because of the upfront costs.
And that might be a good example in, where we educate heavily on the front end for thermal pavers, and the numbers really hash that out of 200, we'll be up to 277 with these two. I think there's 11 thermal paver projects, just because we explain the complexity and the maintenance requirements of them. So I think naturally they fall out, and we support a lot more of your projects that don't require as much maintenance, like the fire retention and rainfall. Or something as simple as impervious surface removal. That's the best one to maintain.
That's the better one.
Yeah.
I just want to say that from a water quality perspective, I think it makes a lot of sense to make that change because as you said, the primary benefit water quality wise is nutrient reduction, and we don't have a care threshold for nutrients. And so if you're just looking at TMDLs, then it doesn't match what the target is here. So I think that makes a lot of sense and appreciate it.
Seems like you might have been at the conversation that we had when we were talking about this. Yeah, we should talk about this same point. So appreciate that feedback. Is there any other questions that we can answer?
No, I'm glad to make a motion that we need, are we ready to make a motion to send this to city council? Brandon,
Sorry.
I'd like to make a motion to send this to city council.
Motion's been received. Anybody like a second? Okay, any further discussion? All right, all in favor of moving these recommendations forward? Okay, there you go. Thank you guys.
All right, we have two more slides as part of our presentation. The first was
You already said you're good.
You were done.
You're good.
This is not, you actually need it.
Oh, that bad.
Okay.
Just kidding.
Oh, all right.
Go ahead.
I'll send an email later.
Way too many numbers on this slide.
So I've got key takeaways here. We were asked it was recommended to staff to report back to the commission after a year of implementation of the SNAP tool. The SNAP tool is the updated, it's not quite new anymore, but it's an updated way to calculate pollutant removal. Everyone in the state's using it. DEQ came up with it, development community is using it. So it's going to generate slightly different outputs, more detailed outputs. So compared to our old simple method, real high level, pollutant removal calculation, it went down slightly, 0.69, compared to 0.58. So marginal difference there. And I'll summarize all this at the end. Project cost over the last year went up a couple $1,000s, as you'll see. Maintenance term increased a couple of years, probably because cost went up. And the cost per pound of nitrogen removed went down marginally. All of that is pretty much a function of project costs going up, a maintenance term extending out the full 10 years, making it more cost effective as a project. So that's what you're seeing. You're only seeing a marginal difference in cost per pound of nitrogen removed. So it actually decreased $500 per pound of nitrogen removed. So all that to say, a year in snapshot, there is not much change between the two.
But
I'm sorry.
the simple method, that's 226 projects, so you're not comparing the same projects to one another.
So what I did here is this is 226 rain gardens and cisterns since the beginning of the program. This is 36 rain gardens and cisterns since we implemented the SNAP tool. There's been, I think, one thermal paving project.
But you didn't compare the same project with the two.
No, did not do that. Just did the average across time. So what we were proposing here is to report back in a year or 24 months, which we have more data points. Continue to compare it against program history and maybe compare it add another year here so we have more data points.
I will say that, with our consultant, through that process, we were comparing the same project with the two different calculation methods. And
So
like
what's
large cistern, small cistern, a lot of different factors as we implemented the policy.
It's really not apples to apples almost, because if you a small cistern has different inputs than, let's say, a large cistern in the SNAP tool. And so the SNAP tool is going to generate, it just has a lot more detail that goes into it. So instead of having one simple calculator, we have 8 templates.
Do you like the snap tool or do you like the simple method? Personally,
Love the snap.
you love the snap tool.
Love it because it generates exactly what Steve is about to talk about on his slide, is it has more outputs. It puts volume captured by the system, phosphorus,
There's more units of output.
and more detailed nitrogen, because you're taking into consideration the detailed land cover. It's not just impervious versus landscape, it's driveway versus roof versus, what's not, there's a couple different, you gotta break it all down. You really need to understand what you're capturing. So one would obviously argue a roof is not gonna be equivalent to a driveway. Or
We've had those questions in the field, asked by owners. So it's nice to have the complexity that's broken down.
So I guess big takeaway here on this slide, just so we don't get lost in the numbers, is that we are still operating per commission's recommendation, with this being the cost share caps. And the snap tool, staff's opinion, has only increased our accuracy over the last year, and we're happy to bring it back in another 12 months or sooner or later, to just report back on how we're moving forward from a pollutant removal standpoint. And I have no comment or question. I can move it over to Stephen, which.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So as identified, as many of you know, SNAP and the simple method are quite different. So you can see the table here, I broke it out. Some of the main output factors. The main one that's with both is total nitrogen, as you can see on the left, simple method and the SNAP tool. But the SNAP tool also outputs phosphorus, which is an important nutrient that we measure and report out through the state and the SNAP tool. And it also measures out volume capture, which is very tangible for people to understand and see. And so you have those 220 something projects that do not have that output because they were calculated through the simple method. So we have to take it out. So, through staff methods, we use a method of statistical evaluation or estimation to fill in those data gaps with all projects using some of the consistent factors, like the big one, impervious surface that's being treated. Impervious surface being treated through the simple method is the same as impervious surface being treated through the SNAP tool method. So we were able to go back in time to the 15 years through this project, 14, and estimate, fill those data gaps. Now, granted, through our database, it's not the actual calculated value, it's an estimated value. So we're taking that into consideration as well. But through those calculations and through that kind of statistical approach, you can see on the bottom left, I was able to fill in the gaps with phosphorus. With all the previous projects and the current ones in this last year, it was 17.9 pounds per year. Volume captured through this program has been 17 million gallons per year. So it's very tangible for the public to digest, hopefully for SMAC, and that we can hang our hat on. And as we grow, we can see significant changes, and not just because the shift of calculation change, we have this massive gap, and you can have that constantly. So key takeaways with that is, again, that continuity of data that we can then, report out, or present, not report out, but present. We can analyze and evaluate. We can tell this kind of complete story of the water quality benefit, which is the main driver of this program. It's basically it. So I'd be happy to get into details on that method that I use, but just wanted to present it kind of a high level here.
Are you doing more of this in the future comparison? Or are you just free to adopt the snap tool? Sounded like you guys were having to do more of a comparison going forward from the last slide.
So maybe what you get, the recommendation from the consultant was to move to the SNAP tool.
Yeah.
Away from simple method. Then the second one was, hey, touch base with the commission in a year and make sure they're with that.
Yeah.
So we were kind of building on that and say, hey, we should touch base in a year or two to make sure everyone's still on the same page and still want staff to continue. And I think it's an easy answer, just how everyone's using the SNAP tool, but full transparency and support y'all's feedback and support too.
Yeah, I think it's good. Everybody's supposed to come.
I don't think we
No, just
just received
information.
this information, I think, here, so, yeah, let's verify. Fair enough.
I was just curious, what's not, like, is that an acronym?
SNAP, you said?
Yeah.
Or SNAP? Yes, it's the North Carolina Stormwater Nitrogen and Phosphorus Tool.
Okay.
It's a calculated tool that's used now for mainly, I think it's mainly, it's not watershed wide calculations and modeling, it's mainly like project based.
I think that my understanding was that the agriculture community also adopted these as SNAP for,
Yeah, I'm sure it's.
not point source discharge calculation, which
Sure.
I think aligns us with broader conversation, which is good.
Yeah.
One small question, you said that it says up here, there's no difference between the total impervious. There's no data gap there between the two. But I thought I heard you say earlier that there is a difference in the way that impervious is calculated with SNAP.
Yeah, so the way I'd be happy to get into more of the details.
It'll be, they just try and take
Yeah, go for it.
take a stab at it. So you're correct. The SNAP tool does take into consideration the different impervious surface type. At the end of the day, it still has a total impervious surface amount. So then it's easy to look back and say, 100 square foot was treated in this method, 100 square foot was treated in this SNAP tool. Use that as a common factor, even though in the SNAP tool, it further breaks it down where 10% of it was driveway, the other 90% was roof.
Okay.
So the detail is there, you're correct in the SNAP tool, but just from total impervious, it's a similar data point across, or a similar source of data across all projects.
Yeah, I could use it as a coefficient between both.
That's.
Thank you. That makes sense.
Is is that considered good? Like 17 pounds is like a bag of dog food, right? So I'm just trying to, like, is that still really good?
Yeah, it's.
For in this context is what I'm wondering.
It's a good question. If you're building big SEMs, it's probably chump change, but it is good because phosphorus typically, the concentration is very low compared to like nitrogen, where its efficacy and how it affects, like the trophic condition of the water body is pretty high, right? An impact, low amounts and low concentrations impacts more than nitrogen would. So, a fairly good sized, 300 square foot rain garden in the backyard in a single family home, the nitrogen removal rate might be 0.03, very small phosphorus removal. Where the nitrogen would be, order of magnitude higher than that. So it's just a different comparison, but yeah, that number is fairly high, especially in the rainwater rewards.
Okay, that's what I'm just curious. I mean, I knew it must be, but it's good to have that explanation.
And
Yeah, just as far as history, when agriculture was mentioned, was it Deanna Osborne that invented or designed the SNAP tool? And that's what I've got in my head. NC State, does that ring a bell? No.
I know it's supported by the state DEQ.
Yeah, but I think Joey Hester was working with Deanna. That's sort of the history of the tool out of. Anyways, okay.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Yep, appreciate it.
All right.
All right, we are going to move forward with our visioning session. We have a nice rainy day. Stormwater in action, beautiful setting. Scott's gonna lead us along, possibly with Wayne. There's some brainstorming and visioning, and we did this last year. Basically, every October, we have to present our work plan to city council. And with that work plan, the goal is to have our desires and wants in there, coalescing with the greater stormwater department needs, division needs. So this will be an effort to kind of start the conversation, essentially.
Cheers to it. Good afternoon. As I've been mentioned several times, it's great to be here. Big proud of the facility. And today with where we got some rainfall, we're tracking this rainfall, by the way, as well. It is time to think about your work plan. Wow, what a quick and productive year you all have. We're wrapping up fiscal year 25 here in just a few weeks.
as I was looking through what we're planning for 25, and we're going to go through briefly here, you've covered just about all the key high priority topics. The few that you've not had a chance to see as yet are actually items that we're waiting for on the staff. So great job, excellent work. You have covered all your high priorities. The commission might remember last year, we did probably extra effort with the work plan. And so probably enough work plan last year would carry us for the next maybe decade perhaps. So you sort of reformulated your format for the work plan. We built upon first the city's template for boards and commissions work plan. And then the SMAC has added the SMAC's preferences for its work plan to the city's template. So what we've got here for FY25, we believe that the commission is okay with that as a format that you may want to continue to follow with updates and changes and perhaps new priorities, of course. But we think we're in pretty solid shape there. So all the extra work that was done last year, we think we can leverage a lot of that for this year. So a few things we thought we'd do. First off, welcome to the commission. Great to have you here. It's great to be a chance to be your facilitator for this. Here is your content for this session right here. So this is going to be up to you. I'll take notes. So appreciate the input and the guidance on this. Let's take a quick look at a couple of things here. Let's take firstly your fiscal year 25 work plans, cover some highlights, and then we would, as part of that, we'll review your existing guiding themes. You all might remember from last month, we talked about the city strategic planning and our own business planning within stormwater. Your guiding themes are sort of like our city's key focal areas. Yeah, so it's overarching guiding themes. And then you identify maybe a dozen or so high priority topics for specific topics. So that's what we'll look at. This might be okay. And we'll be updating photographs, of course, for the commission members. This is right up front, you know what this map is all about. As Wayne mentioned, and Chair Smith, this will go to the city council as anticipated in October of this year. So there's plenty of time to work on this. So we'll start the brainstorming today and we'll continue to work going forward. Thank you all. So right at the top, a couple of years ago, the SMAC decided to adopt or utilize the same mission statement that we at the stormwater program level use, and that's to manage stormwater to preserve and protect life, support healthy natural resources, and complement sustainable growth for the community. So you've already had discussions around that today with Rainbow Awards and projects and the things that you're doing. Our vision here, be the smartest program possible. I noted about the events. Typically, this means the first Thursday of the month, and sometimes we have some special meetings, but typically the first Thursdays. This is an important part of all of our boards and commissions, and that's the community engagement, education, and outreach. So this is sort of the upfront content in the work plan. I think the next section goes into some of the guiding themes. And this is last year, the commission members identified 5 guiding themes, and they are the first one, future of green Raleigh, sustainable and responsible growth. And this is about reviewing, updating, developing initiatives that support environmental stewardship within the city, implementing stormwater programs focused on ensuring sustainable and responsible growth. First one. And these are 2 through 5. And here's some operationalized equity. A lot of our commission's been very much engaged in how we apply equity to our projects, our programs, our services, our day-to-day delivery. We appreciate the guidance on that. Education and outreach. Obviously, a huge part of everything that we do is engaging with the community, providing information about our projects and programs and our services. Operational and fiscal management. The budget was mentioned, has been presented to City Council. Everything that we do is funded by the resources supported by the commission and then, of course, by City Council on what happens in the community. And then very important, public health, public safety, and community resilience. So those are sort of the overarching themes that the commission landed on last year. Perhaps we pause on those and see if there's any thoughts or ideas or any new themes or tweaks to the existing themes or any perhaps new ideas.
Can we back up to the mission and vision statement? That's the first one.
Yes.
I just wanted to pause, not only I've read it beforehand, but I kind of wanted to make sure we weren't conflating stormwater, maybe fine to you, but stormwater vision itself versus what our mission vision is, but I just want to maybe pause on that one, because I think it's, they are separate. I mean, we're obviously supporting that one, but I just want to make sure that we want to pause and read it again to make sure that's kind of with a different hat.
Yes, it's a great, so I would say a couple or 3 years back, I think there were aligned mission statements between the commission and the stormwater program. Was it last year, maybe 2 years ago, Wayne, that the commission decided to essentially adopt the similar mission that we have? I think that's how.
It's a little longer.
Maybe 2 or 3 years, maybe 3 years ago, perhaps.
I do wonder a touch about that, because, you know, is it our job to manage stormwater, or is it our job to support the division in managing stormwater? Or I don't know, maybe it is, I'm
Yeah.
just trying to think, maybe
Yeah.
it may be the same thing, but different words. Yeah.
I agree, because like most of the commission action comments on our agenda, it's always requesting recommendations for staff to,
Right.
but for us to respond to, advise, guide, staff as
Yeah, that
appropriate.
language versus this is us managing something.
Yeah, and I think that's really important because I know from personally just being a lay person, joining the commission is really helpful to understand like what do we do and what do we not do? You know, what influence do we have and what can we not kind of push too far?
And I think the word foster is maybe weak, maybe it could be a stronger, more leading. It seems like not a strong one.
Yeah.
Foster is supporting.
Yeah, it's always support and advise, or, yeah, support and guide, or support or advise and guide.
I like the word advise. It seems, it could even be as simple as like supporting and advising stormwater department to accomplish their mission and then stating the mission, which is there.
Yeah,
Because it's a good mission, but we are just supporting that mission.
right, yeah, we're recognizing their mission and just saying that's.
And it ties back to the acronym SMART.
Yeah,
It's SMART.
yeah.
Excellent guidance. So I think we're bringing together the two, our program mission, and really clarifying SMAC's role as our guide, our direction, our support, liaison to council. So, yeah, I think we've got some tweaks there. We'll have an updated mission statement for the commission that's still fully aligned with the stormwater program.
Yeah, liaison to council is good. Because it's like, instead of staff going directly to council, it's good to know that there is like a forum in between.
Yeah, we have more flexibility than staff sometimes to speak to citizens or.
Right, residents, yeah.
And I think that should be for, to represent, and support the city and county.
Yes.
You start filling your presentations.
I think the Luann's point, foster is like a little, for the vision, maybe we can be a little bit more aggressive. And I don't know if you just want to change that word or what the word is, but I think that's what you're getting at. Let's go for it instead of just. We don't do, we are advisory board and support towards staff, but.
I support that. Or.
Some great feedback. So we'll have an updated draft when we come back. If the commission decides to take a pause in July, and since we have the fall city councils, come back in August with the draft of the fall. Thank you for that.
Help me understand why that community engagement thing is there on this first page. I mean, we are part of the outbound work of the division. Yet, I'm just trying to figure out, we aren't involved in a lot of that work, so maybe we should be, that's a topic for discussion, but I'm just trying to figure out.
Yeah, I think supporting those endeavors, maybe having input.
Yeah.
I think I think it's part of the two different hats, right? It's kind of as Stormwater is actually sharing this with, they're part of the engagement. So it's kind of two different hats on we're writing this, we are versus
Oh, yeah.
as we are part of the community engagement by having the commission. Yeah. So I think it's just the tweaking of the language on who's the author versus coming from us first.
Yeah, I mean, we've been offered the opportunity as a commission because the city has said engaging at this level matters. So therefore we are a part of that. Are we doing anything other than encouraging you guys to do it?
But maybe that could be something that's active, is that maybe we figure out how we can be more.
I do think, if I can comment. Sure. So the history here is when the stormwater utility was created, there was a stakeholders group to help advise how the utility program would be set up. That was the stakeholders group that evolved into SMAC. And we do have within the SMAC charter, these representative seats that are guidance. So you all are, and I think somebody brought, you all are part of that community engagement just by attending these meetings, getting representation from different aspects of the community, nonprofits and development, real estate, land use planning, et cetera, et cetera. That's part of the engagement. So I think that's why that is right up here forefront. Now, I agree with you. There may be additional roles, and we're open to that you can even take that a step further in terms of bringing staff into your communities or helping reach other communities in broader ways as well. But I think to your original question, just the fact that you're representative of the community is why that's a. Was there a way to at least state that we understand that we are representative of the community, like in a
Could
way?
it be?
That first word.
Yeah.
Stormwater is continuing to live on that, therefore, you're part of it.
We are representing for that, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just
In our
making-
role.
In our role,
It's
yeah.
role SMAC does.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, 'cause I think that first smack should have been stormwater.
Stormwater division, yeah. Yes.
Right, and so I think it's just making sure who's,
There's no first.
yeah.
Should be noted as the.
Yeah. And, yeah, there's also further recognition of the work that stormwater.
It's a little vague, but you could just make it a little more concise. Like
A little
this
more
is-
concise.
This is how this is.
Absolutely.
And we do all this.
Yes.
I have a potential can of worms question, so feel free to. But I'm wondering about, I've been hearing a lot from other nonprofits and also from city staff about the changes to federal DEI discussions and how that's changing our contract language. And I'm seeing a lot of the word equity in here, and I know that that's a word I love, but I don't know that. So I'm just wondering what kinds of changes is the city obligated to implement based on those federal decisions?
No obligation. So, it's open discussion, and this is your.
Yeah, I would just say that you guys consider that reality that's going on right now. I know at the university levels, I've heard of websites, you can put your wording in there and then it'll spit out what you should change or what the hot words are and, substitute words that are effectively equivalent, you can put in there or something. And I think that should be considered probably.
Yeah, I only ask because I've heard from, university and nonprofit partners and also some city staff that that's something that's being discussed. So I didn't know if we needed to discuss it.
I would suggest we get the staff's recommendation on that, but they consider. I think the next slide has a lot of that.
Yeah.
I'm sure, ready to move on to.
Thank you so much for the feedback. So we'll update your mission, your vision, that community outreach section was also in the other boards and commissions work plan, and we'll further tailor that to the commission.
I didn't know we were jumping on that slide, so I don't know what the relationship with the stormwater department and when we're number 3 in the country in hurricanes. So I think there needs to be some consideration of what the stormwater department does vis-a-vis those storms and mitigating those and how you're communicating with them, because they're gonna be flooding events. So I just assume, I mean, I don't know, that there is a relationship there, and I don't know whether that should be part, just a mention.
There's a guiding theme, but the 15.
Yeah,
Talks about public health, public safety, community resilience.
Yeah, remember last year we added that.
That was an added one, yeah.
Thinking along the lines.
Right. Exactly. Okay, I just didn't know whether you needed to specifically cite storm events or
Yeah, we might leave that as we get into this.
just a question.
Hey, real backwards a little bit. Raleigh Stormwater's here, Stormwater's on one page, Stormwater, and you may have just cut and pasted certain group pages out. I'm just trying to, is it Raleigh Stormwater, is it the Stormwater Department, Stormwater Program, and Stormwater Division? Is it the whatever it is, let's just have it, the thing all the way through, I guess, so that's. Or your division, is that correct?
We are, we are not a department, we are not a division, we are Raleigh Stormwater.
Period.
That's that.
And there are storm measures within Raleigh Stormwater.
And you're different.
Good point.
Yeah, I mean, it's right on this slide, it's just the slide before is a little softer. So.
And this one even has to get like a 5-page page with, almost,
Yeah, intends to advise and engage with all, this is more appropriate word.
So I think y'all are saying that, if I can, more of this language you see as being more of the mission in terms of advise and engage, set priorities for policy related decisions to support Raleigh Stormwater's.
Yeah, and I think what Samantha said, of just,
Okay.
our goal is to support their, the overall goals. I think it's fine to restate that. Again, my opinion is something.
I would agree.
That's great. It really is a building leadership of those mission statements between the project and the commission. That's great.
And our words are not meant to critique any prior work that was done unless we're just
Yeah.
looking at it with a fresh set of eyes. They're not at all trying to.
Every time we, yeah, we focus on continuing improving everything we do every day. Okay, great. So we've got some notes for the mission, the vision, for the engagement section right in front. We'll advise that and bring back to you all. Okay, guiding themes. So these were the 5 that were identified by the commission last year with another. And as Wayne mentioned, throughout the years, we've brought topics to you. We've connected those topics to the guiding themes and to the specific high priority items as well. So you've seen this throughout the year. Here we go. Yeah, probably we all of them here at the same time. Any high level themes, new themes, adjustments or improvements to these themes that you all might want to recommend. And again, this is just initial brainstorming today. We've got a lot more time to work with.
They aren't prioritized at all, right? So there's no ranking of them. So.
Rereading this, I still see your point too about, is this really what we do, or do we support these things?
Yeah, but I think if you rephrase it, potentially it's like a guiding theme for topics that we're discussing, we're advising on, like these are still things that we want to, I think you can wordsmith or kind of like the forward to it. It'd still be, these are topics that are top of mind as far as the things that we want to focus on and continue to bring to the top of Stormwater's docket. Are you talking about? I think these are still.
Yeah, there should not be any confusion that we're doing this work.
Right, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. Like we might provide, advisory or.
These guide our feedback and our engagement with you guys. You should guide our efforts.
Yeah,
I would say it helps guide us in terms of the types of topics, policies, decisions you would like to be involved in as we are implementing the program. So to me, that's where the guiding themes would come. You're not involved, for example, you're not involved in hiring decisions. That's an operational issue. You're involved in policy guidance and setting priorities and what are the most important types of capital improvements projects, et cetera. So that, I think that's where these guiding
If you
themes
were a
are.
resident and you're visiting the site out there, and you're like, what does the Stormwater Advisory Commission do? And, oh, there's somebody on there I want to talk to, because I think
Yes.
they are doing these things.
Yeah.
When that's not the case, we're serving in the advisory capacity.
Yes, yeah, I think it's just the initial, either the forward to it or the verbs they're using for the education. I think that those can be, because, you know,
Yes, it's just a tweak,
yeah,
but I think an important one.
yeah.
That's great. It's great feedback.
But as far as the five, if you want feedback on like, are the five still relevant?
Yeah, well, it's still,
Mine, with minor tweaks,
Yeah.
there's some little tinker on there. Are the five still relevant?
still relevant. Are there new ones or are there, you know, adjustments to these or any ideas at all? These are your overarching ones. Your various specific topics will of course align with perhaps multiple.
I wonder, given our sort of recent, in the past year or so, focusing on more of the rezoning discussions, if there would be, it makes sense to reflect the fact that we're advocating for, like, I don't know how we phrase it, but like watershed wise, or like stormwater smart land use policy or land use decisions.
We come back to the previous page and mention that one.
Oh, maybe this gets out.
Could it fit with that one? And
Not
maybe
about
just
the one.
Yeah, because it's not, it's only, yeah.
I think advocating for conditions that may not otherwise be proposed, like in this Honeycutt Road
Well,
situation.
I think it's still the wording, the sub-wording needs to be framed, but I think the idea was the theme.
The idea is this is where it would fall, but yeah.
I think that makes sense if
We
we
have to get some
wordsmith it a little
words.
bit to reflect that shift in work, to put it in theme one.
That's good. Certainly, the commission's had more input. He didn't work this on that during this last year, which has been great.
Stormwater programs and approaches focused on something, I don't know,
Yeah,
the sort of programs and solutions.
I think, yeah, just viewing that with a fresh
Yeah.
perspective of what you're mentioning.
I mean, the five guiding themes for me, seem, unless there's a blind spot, I'm not, seem to cover a lot, you know. And I'm just thinking through our meetings this past year. Now, a few less maybe on education outreach, and a few less on operationalizing equity. There's been a lot of other stuff, that the other three we've been on quite a bit, you know.
But one thought here, based on some feedback, maybe implementing stormwater programs and reviewing policies.
Yeah.
Might be helpful.
Stormwater programs and policies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Updating development.
Yeah, nice.
That's
think-
great.
I think last year we kind of did this too, where we didn't go deep. We kind of stayed at the front of the document for the first session, and we dove deeper later. I think that's it. So,
There'll be another opportunity.
Yeah, we'll bring that back. And this is where the overarching
Yeah.
themes, we do believe in as well, these themes will go forward for many, many years. There's a lot of work. Our own work plan is a 3-year plan. And so even there, we see themes that carry forward beyond those 3 years.
I would say, if you guys start hearing feedback, and like guiding theme number 2 does have a word that is a hot word right now. So, you know, it is something that has mattered, it does matter to this commission, and we have seen the ill effects of not thinking that way in Raleigh and many cities. And so, by just the physical manifestations that we see in the city. So I'd like to keep it there. I just, but give us fair warning if you're seeing or hearing something that like, hey, legal says, what about this word?
And just for, we have not heard anything like that from, from city administration or management.
I've heard from the universities on grant funding.
Universities.
Are you not concerned that it would impact your grant funding?
Yeah.
Same, yeah,
Yeah.
nonprofits.
Absolutely. The city has renamed the MWBE, Minority Women Business Enterprise Program. I'll have to look it up. They have renamed that program recently. And I haven't looked up what the new acronym is, but that's the only related conversation.
And the wording right there is just engagement with the delivery to vulnerable communities within the city. So it's a little not, it's not,
Yeah.
I mean, we understand where the landfill was, we understand where the water goes, we understand. I mean, physically, we can say that a certain part of the city has been very vulnerable for a long time, but there are other vulnerable parts of the city.
And there are state laws too that could be changing in favor of development of her, like if they want to say, and this may not pass or anything, but it's just discussions being had where it's almost like, almost sort of threatening to cities that if you bar development, then you might be in violation of the state law. And that would certainly be related to what we're looking at, because we don't want to necessarily prevent it, but I think for those conditions that are more favorable to conservation and stormwater management are good ones to try to slot in there, because they're going to do it. It's not going to stop. The developments are going to happen, but it's nice to know that you all are part of the process and inserting the recommendations, and maybe the developers will come around just like the ones did in Honeycutt.
It's overall goal, that we all live here because the quality of life is pretty damn good. Hopefully everybody sees that quality of life is, that's the value, right? So that's.
You would have.
But Graham, to your point about the word vulnerable, communities could be vulnerable in many ways. Age of infrastructure, I think it's.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's a good one at this point. Yeah.
You just noted that it's an issue.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's fine too, just because you're vulnerable if you live in a flood. So
Yeah,
you're vulnerable.
right,
if you live in a flood.
Yeah, it's not, yeah, exactly. So in general, we're okay with these 5 themes for now, and with some wordsmithing down below to possibly align with what Mike does and what we're.
Yeah, I like the 5 themes because it helps. There are so many programs and initiatives. And it helps to start with 5 general things that we care about.
Yes, focus areas, because that's one thing we talked about last year. Can't do everything. So prioritize the things that are most important, yeah.
That's great. That's great. That's an excellent, maybe with the previous, we'll take a quick look at these high priorities. And this will give you a chance to really celebrate your good work throughout the year on these. So I think last year we did a pretty detailed summary of all the time to the different activities, and we got some great feedback on that. I'm not sure if we do that yet. We'll do that as soon as we can, but we can kind of talk through maybe the next page here. Okay, so you actually had 10 items, this high priority specific topics, things that you wanted to cover during the year. Like you did an excellent job of all. Advancing operational equity, we're giving you updates on audit work. Through that throughout the years, we continue to do the very best that we can. Create a SMAC planning subcommittee. That's a big check on that one, and a success as we've elevated SMAC, as the commission has really elevated its role in advising on projects for the planning commission and to council. Engage GSI master plan development. That one is coming very, very soon. So look for that. I think it's maybe August or September. We'll bring that to you early in the new fiscal year. So we would potentially propose that you carry that forward into your new one. Thanks to Ben and Seamus and Allison, you heard about the city's floodplain management program and the great work on the community rating system. 5 is the score for that, which is great. Of course, you've heard about our operational budget and our capital improvement program budget for 26, which is being considered right now by city council at this time. Review last, I think it was last month, Moses, Javier, and team, who brought a presentation for you on our use of data, some of our business intelligence dashboarding. And many of you are more familiar with that than I am. So we brought you some updates on that one. You've heard, I think you've heard a little bit about the continued work on the flood early warning system program. We are going to bring you a more detailed update in August. The MS4 permit, I believe we're still awaiting the new permit. So that's not one that we've been able to bring forward. We're just pending on that one. The P credit policy, which actually was mentioned here today, is temporarily paused at the staff level. Certainly we have that in place and we're going to consider enhancements as we go forward. Gotta get some tape on it. And the last one here is really that this has been one of, I think, your most significant items. Your streamlined approach for rainwater awards has really opened up your calendar, as it were, and allowed to cover really a wide variety of topics while still giving all the attention to rainwater awards as a program. So I think that's been really good. So, I see a lot of checks on those, and the ones that we haven't checked fully yet, we're going to bring back to you soon from the staff. That's just a quick preview of those.
Maybe the homework would be review these, bring back any ideas for other priority items when we re-engage in August.
Yeah, I just have one at the top of my head, is that the nutrient rules for the state are coming up for review on a 5-year cycle. And I would be interested in if staff or the committee could sort of have any discussions on different key changes or items there, whether it's something the city would like to see that we could help support through the board change process, or things you're concerned about, or likewise that you would not like to see change through those. Just how we can contribute to that on behalf of the city. 'Cause, I mean, I know it takes like 5 years to integrate. When they do the rule change, you sort of have, right, 5 years to actually do what they changed. So now they've done it, they're gonna theoretically potentially change the rules.
What time means you bring some tape and everything's done.
Could you combine, like, for example, the operational equity with things like the rainwater rewards? Like, you know, say, this is how we're gonna do it? Like, certain ways.
Yeah, I think it's an overriding theme that hits a ton of the programs, just to, and that rainwater rewards is clearly been focused on.
Yeah, by supporting 100% number for rainwater rewards profits and going to 90%, that does change that the equity equation.
Maybe there's full sub bullets to that one, or something. I don't know, it's just, it occurred to me that those, that's kind of the how. The other things are kind of the happening for HP1.
It's great. So throughout the year and going forward, we'll continue to link your topics with the guiding themes and with the specific high priority items. Are you comfortable with the high priority and guiding themes, that sort of terminology that we develop? Seems like a reasonable way. And of course, we'll update the specific items based on your desires.
And this helps it be more clear what we do versus the staff.
Yeah,
that's right, that's right.
Specific things we want to.
As I say, this becomes a little bit of a much easier conversation with council when they review it and they say, hey, you guys had 10 high priority things, you received information on all 10, you acted on 7 of them. Like it kind of makes all of that conversation go much by having this streamlined as it is. So not that there's a ton of questions to council, but there's always some new folks and they ask questions. So.
One other potential, I think, high priority work item to flag just for next year is the comp plan engagement. You know, we've been doing a bit of that as a commission. Just the awesome event that you and Reverend Taylor helped represent us at, but I don't know how much longer the comp plan is going to be in process. It's a couple years or something.
It's through the end of the year at least. I know that they're working on developing it, and yeah. think they're continuing the community conversations with other topics. We were one of the early ones.
Do you see that as being a place where SMAC could engage moving forward now that the kind of stormwater focused event is over?
Potentially, yeah, I think that's something that, we can check in on how we can engage as they're, updating the wording and the priorities for the comp plan. Yeah, I think that would be a fair one to put on. Yeah.
I have a question. Is the work plan of SMAC a public document?
Yes, it is.
And is there a way that we can, like, the acronyms in those be spelled out? Just.
Comment on that. I think they spelled it out beforehand and at the front, it's SMAC, so that it wasn't, that's like on the, they just looked like, anyway, so I think that's a good help for when they define stormwater.
Goes back to
Yeah.
cleaning it up.
Yeah.
That's
This
great.
is the first one.
Definitely.
Have you given any kind of like, just a blurb about who makes up the commission, like diverse backgrounds? We're either from
Yeah, I think.
related areas or totally non-related areas. I don't know.
I think.
You go on that first page, and it's just kind of like the commission, there's the mission, there's the meeting dates. It's just loosely who it's comprised of and why it's comprised of.
That's a good, I see there like a history section, if you want to look at the history of the group, whatever, even having that one before, that maybe that's better than putting the educate, maybe that section's better than putting a community outreach or education. Or
I mean, yeah, just you explaining that it was an outgrowth of when stormwater became a utility, that had to be stakeholders because of blah, 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 and then it grew into the commission, founded on this, code article, whatever, code. The real great.
Like, who are your representatives on this commission? Not in, like individual bios, but just a summary.
And appointed by the city council.
What's that?
Appointed by the city council.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, appointed by city council, yeah, exactly.
Oh, yes. Good point.
If it's not too much too tall of an ask too, I think it could be cool to highlight a few kind of key successes that have come out of the commission over the many years that it's been around, including like the 100-year floodplain prohibition and, the creation of various whatever subcommittees and just a little idea of what the commission has done. Past X amount of Raleigh Water Rewards projects.
I think that's, we'll integrate some of those for your consideration. It will also.
Be interesting to see what the total of nitrogen and phosphorus too has been pulled out because of the
Yeah.
program, just as like a highlight.
Yep, to see that phosphorus number up there now, you're like, okay, total this, we did nitrogen, And the fact that it all goes to one place is a very measurable thing, right?
Well, great work, Commission. There's more to your work plan. The rest of your work plan is more comprehensive general themes of stormwater, topics that you touch on periodically. I think an improvement the Commission made last year, as noted, really break down what's the high priority items. You can report back to council, you check the box on all of them. That's good. It's going to be also very helpful for the annual report that Ariel's working on as well.
Yeah, so let's, given our conversation, I forgot to mention that there is an annual report that goes with work plan. So it does document at least kind of the things we did this year or something like that. So there is an arrow list, major looking on that, kind of track everything. So,
Yeah, I think a key word is influence in the achievements, because there's a lot, it seems to me, just on the time I've been here, my observation is we've been able to influence things that might not have otherwise been discussed.
Well, excellent work. It looks like Kevin Davis, there's some people that we'll bring some tape in next time. Thank y'all. Excellent feedback. We will, as we prepare your updated drafts, as you're taking your summer break, while you're taking your summer breaks, think about specific topics that you might want to consider for next year, next fiscal year, which starts actually in August for the commission. And bring your notes. We'll continue the session in August. And I think we'll to council in October, I believe. Cheers.
Yeah. First meeting in October, I think is when we're on the calendar. So, yeah, the goal is we'll have more, I don't know if we'll have a draft in August. And then we'll have more dialogue in August. And then by September, we'll kind of vote the work plan and annual report up. So that it'll be presented to council in October.
Exactly.
And thank you, Ariel. Oh, good, okay. Well, thank her anyways. I'll try to rest.
Resting up for the big work.
With, speaking of vacation, we are looking to take, next meeting would be July 3rd. And council taking off the first, so they're taking a little recess. We often take a recess, in July, so I'd like to recommend we don't meet in July.
So
No move. Second. All in favor? Okay, there we go. Look at that. Worked out well. Okay. And then, like Scott said, there are some preliminary topics for the forthcoming meetings. Always feel free to email Nicola or myself if you guys are thinking of something, hear something in the community about topics like, hey, so-and-so asked me about this and I don't know anything about it. So can we have a presentation on it? We learn about it. That's definitely our, we can offer that or ask staff to bring stuff to us. So. Let's see, we have an optional field trip here, although maybe drying out there, to Simmons Branch, stormwater and stream system improvements. There was a link in our agenda, and then we need to take some photographs.
We do not need-
We do not need to take photographs.
No, we don't need it. We moved to the end.
Did my hair. Okay, we will do photographs before October.
We have a brief presentation on the city project.
Okay.
You want to know?
Yeah, let's do an adjournment and then, okay, and then we will do the brief presentation by staff. So, okay, anybody want to make a recommendation? Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second, Ian, all in favor? Okay, we're adjourned.